Hey moms, Christina Moreland here, and welcome to this Tuesday live event. Today we're going to talk about something that affects all of us, or can affect all of us, and that is how to manage stress eating. This is something that can happen to even the most dedicated of athletes. I mean, it's happened to me this week, and I'll tell you why in just a second, but stress eating is something that none of us are immune to. And a lot of times stress eating, what psychologists call emotional eating, derives from when we were very young and maybe our parents or, we were around family and friends and social gatherings, and so food was offered as a comfort or is offered as a treat. And so a lot of times when we're stressed or we're angry or we're scared or there's something going on in our lives, we tend to gravitate to those things that make us comfortable. And so that's how we can fall into the trap of emotional eating. None of us are immune to this. I mean, not even me. I've gone through it this week. And in little doses, stress eating is actually not a problem. If you can consume small amounts of it and identify your triggers and then move past it, then it won't do damage. But what happens is if it solves that emotional craving that you have and you keep going for it, then it can turn into a damaging habit. And so that's why we're talking about it today, because I know that many of you have goals. You've set goals at the beginning of the year. We're only in the second month of the year and we want to achieve those goals. And so we want to avoid stress eating wherever possible. Again, none of us are immune. This happens to everybody. And it happens when we feel sad, tired, anxious, scared, or angry. And in small amounts, again, it won't hurt, but it can derail your goals if it continues to be a habit. So common emotional eating triggers include stress, boredom, and habits. Stress is the largest reason behind this. And what happens is it's actually biological. Our bodies are flooded with a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol, can't pronounce it very well, when we're stressed or unhappy or feeling anxious. And so the same mechanism that makes us crave sugary, fatty, and salty foods is that same chemical. And so what happens is it's a hardwired response. We crave, we have this chemical in our brain because we're anxious or scared or frightened or angry, and then we reach for the object that is hardwired to achieve that same goal in our brain. So it's really interesting because it actually sends these neurotransmitters into your brain to reprogram it. That's why if you continue to allow those triggers to affect you, then it can become a habit, and it's very hard to break once it does become a habit. So boredom is another reason, and it's when you really just don't have anything else to do. You're kind of looking around, for something to get, and so you just kind of reach for things mindlessly. And then the last way is through habits. And it's basically, you come home from work, you're running errands, and it's just a pattern that you tend to follow. The comfort is in the pattern, not necessarily in the food that you're gravitating towards. So it's really important that you can distinguish between the three. Let's just say that yours is from stress or anxiety, and you've had a stressful day, your boss wants to move up an important deadline, and maybe your child had an incident at school or isn't really performing well and you don't know why. And so I can actually relate to this topic a lot because a week ago, this past Sunday, my father-in-law, who I was very close to, passed away. And he had gone through a year and a half of illness. And in some ways, his illness took a long time. And it was an emotional roller coaster up and down. We didn't know exactly when and where it was going to happen, and in other ways it just happened like that. And so I could totally relate to this topic. But my husband is the oldest of 4 kids, and he's also the executor of the estate, and he's also managing my father-in-law's estate and his mother's estate because his grandmother had passed away just a few months before that. So here we had 2 estates to settle, 2 houses to clear. I mean, to say that we've been stressed over the last week is a serious understatement. So I've noticed this week that I've gravitated towards, the Nutella, the leftover goldfish on my son's plate, the crackers and cheese that I normally wouldn't eat. So there are some things that you can do. Again, keep in mind it's important to distinguish which one of which one applies to you. What's triggering the behavior? Is it anger, sadness, boredom, what? And if you can trigger that, then hopefully you can manage it better. Emotional eaters tend to gravitate towards comfort foods. Foods that bring back fond memories, often from your youth, like we talked about before. And comfort foods are usually quick to prepare or easy to grab. So we tend to gravitate towards the crackers, the macaroni and cheese, the potato chips, the Nutella. This is my guilty pleasure. The Nutella, the cookies, everything. So what you want to do is, if you know this and you have a specific goal, let's just say your goal is to lose 20 pounds before the beginning of the summer. There's an obvious conflict, right, between your stress habit and the goal you say you want. So here are some things you can do. The first one, this is the first strategy, and this is probably the most important and the most effective. And that is to replace the food with something else. So that sounds easy, right? But let's just say that you notice your particular stress response is to eat crunchy, salty chips. Typically people tend to be a sweet or a salty crunch. So let me know if you're watching this and you're kind of hanging out with me on this topic. Let me know, are you salty crunch or are you sugary sweet? Which one do you tend to go for? I'm just curious. I'm definitely salty crunch. So I'm more likely to go for those chips back there. So I need to replace it with something else. So one of the things that you can do is you can try pistachio nuts, assuming that you're not allergic to nuts. They're salty, they're low in calories, they're high in protein. They're also likely to give you the same effect in your brain that the salty chips would have done, but they're more nutritious. So pistachios are one of the lowest calorie nuts. They're packed with healthy fats, fiber, and they can help to regulate blood sugar. So it's a great replacement if you're that salty crunch. This way you won't experience the painful sugar spike and the drops that you would with something sweet and salty. Now, while I was doing research for this topic, I found Susan Albers, who's a Huffington Post blogger, said, when you're itching for a sugar fix, try reaching for a mandarin orange instead. I thought that was a great tip because mandarin oranges tend to be around 50 calories. It will satisfy your sweet tooth, but it also gives you something to do in peeling the orange, which is something productive, right? So our fingers are working, our hands are working, we're peeling that orange. Then after you've unpeeled the orange, it's going to elicit this amazing citrusy scent, which is relaxing and it will help to calm your brain. She says this will give you a meditative moment to calm you. The fruit is also rich in vitamin C, which your body needs to strengthen its immunity in times of stress. So I thought that was awesome. An awesome suggestion. So this tip is the reason why in my Supermom Get Fit program, I recommend eating frequently throughout the day. And I recommend eating meals at every 3 to 3.5 hour intervals and a minimum of 5 meals per day. And the reason is because, and also always lead with a protein source. And the reason is because you're going to feel satiated longer in between meals, and it reduces the likelihood that you're going to, pig out on those low nutritious junk foods. So bringing my example of the last week where I lost my father-in-law and we've kind of been going into stress mode and just kind of picking things that were available. One of the things that I noticed was if I had my protein shake and my apple and I had my next meal scheduled, even if it was 3 to 4 hours later, then I could say to myself, okay, I know I'm going to have that shake, and I would drink my protein shake, and it actually had a balance of carbohydrates as well. So I was less likely and started reducing the frequency I was reaching for those foods. I hope that makes sense. So I recommend that you eat frequently, get into the habit of eating frequently. And another thing you can do is if you currently eat it every 3.5 to 4 hours, move up that time frame by 20 to 30 minutes. So move it up to 3 hours so that you know your next meal is coming soon and you're less likely to reach for something. So here's another thing that you can do. Massage has calming benefits, and this is scientifically proven. So, you can also give yourself a foot rub. You can take off your foot, and you can even do this if you work at a desk environment. Take off your shoe under the desk. Nobody's going to see you, and just massage that foot, rub your foot around And that will help to relax you, because the act of self-massage, according to this study in International Journal of Neuroscience, it slows your heart rate and it lowers your levels of cortisol, which is that stress hormone. So it really can help reduce that stress hormone. So here's a second tip. And this also came from a psychologist. Her name is Dr. Susan Albers. She's a psychologist at the Cleveland Clinic Hospital, and she's an author. She said to use your non-dominant hand to eat. So if you're right-handed, use your left hand to eat. It's going to slow, for one thing, it's going to slow you down. You may want to do that when you're by yourself, because I don't know about you, but my non-dominant hand is not very capable and functional. So it may kind of look funny if you're trying to feed yourself with your non-dominant hand. But she says to use your non-dominant hand. A 2011 study by research from the University of Southern California found that this strategy can reduce the amount that you eat, and the action breaks up the automatic hand-to-mouth flow because it's slower, and it encourages you to think about each bite and slow down. Another known strategy, so this is the third strategy, is to sip black tea. A study in the Journal of Psychopharmacology found that people who drank black tea experienced a 47% drop in their cortisol levels. Again, that's that stress hormone. So they reduced that level, and it makes you, compared to 27% who didn't drink the black tea. So personally, I've found that drinking anything warm is kind of a comfort to me. I've never drank black tea, but I like jasmine tea. I like white tea. I like chamomile. Sometimes just the act of, again, doing something, taking a break, can really help reduce those cortisol levels. And tea is not going to help. It's not going to hurt you, right? It doesn't have any sugar in it. It's not reaching for those fatty foods. So you're safe with that. But I found that really does help a lot. And then so this is strategy number 4, is to breathe. And this sounds like, very common sense, but adding oxygen to your brain helps you think more clearly and make better food decisions, especially when you're stressed. This is why I work out. I know I've said this many times and people often laugh when I say this, but the gym is my free therapy session. I promise you, when I'm stressed and I get in the gym and I work it out, it's awesome. Why? Because I'm increasing oxygen to my brain. It also increases the hormone levels in your brain that reduce stress. It gives you that drop of dopamine. So breathing is another way of doing that. And you can do this anywhere. You can even do this at your desk. So what you want to do is be very mindful about your breath. And so a couple of strategies are to breathe in as deeply as you can and count to 10 and release that breath. But another strategy that I found is, so one of the psychologists suggested that you breathe in and you're mindful of your oxygen levels. You close your eyes and you stare at the blackness of your eyelids, because it kind of puts your body and your mind in a mindset for sleep. And so that can help to reduce your stress levels. Count each time you inhale and exhale and continue until you get to 10. So a breathing technique that I have used effectively, and I saw this on Dr. Oz years ago, is called the 777 technique. And I wrote about this in my second book, Secrets of the Supermom, Part 2. So I'm just going to read you a little bit of what I wrote, but this came from Dr. Majid Fatuhi. He's the chairman of the Neurology Institute for Brain Health and Fitness in Baltimore. He's also an assistant professor of neurology at Johns Hopkins University, and he was on the Dr. Oz show specifically talking about this technique. So the way it works is it's going, again, to reduce that hormone cortisol, which is harmful to your health, and it's harmful to your immune system. But the 777 technique works like this. You take in a deep breath for a full 7 seconds. Okay, count to 7 as you're taking that breath as deep as you can. Once that breath is in, you hold it for another 7 seconds. So you still have not released the breath. So in for 7, hold for 7, Then you release it slowly for 7 seconds. Now, you may have to work up to this. A lot of us aren't, yogis or breathing experts, but you can practice it, and you will definitely feel your anxiety and stress start to melt away. And, it's interesting because the reason why I wrote about this was a particularly difficult time where I had experienced a second miscarriage in between my 2 kids. And the second miscarriage was at the 13-week mark. And we had just announced this, the baby to our family. It was the week after Christmas, and it was just devastating. And so I was researching ways to not only reduce stress, but to deal with grief. And so breathing became a way of meditating and a way of me, going through the process of that grief and trying to reduce that anxiety and stress. And so you repeat this breathing technique as often as you need to so that you can reset your mind. And the reason, again, why I wrote about this is because oftentimes dealing with our children, particularly when they're toddlers and difficult, you need a break, right? You need to be by yourself, and especially if you keep your kids by yourself at home during the day. And I found that breathing techniques worked a lot when I was trying to reduce the likelihood that I would get angry with my children or yell. So it can help in that, as well as dealing with grief. But scientists have shown that breathing techniques really do help to reduce that cortisone levels in your brain. And that, again, is the harmful hormone that we get whenever we're stressed. So another thing that I have done daily, and I meant to bring it into the segment with me and I just forgot to grab it, but for the last 4 years, I've done a daily devotional called Jesus Calling. Now, if you're not Christian, you can pick whatever works for you. This isn't to promote a particular practice by any means, but Jesus Calling has been an amazing book for me. It's written by Sarah Young, and basically every day there's 2 paragraphs that tie to a Bible passage or more, and then she has referenced 3 or 4 Bible passages. So what I'll do is I'll take the time to read the daily devotional, and then I'll go and I'll reference those passages in the Bible, and it literally is less than 10 minutes, but that's how I start my day, and that's how I get into the mindset every day, to have a great day, to bring joy to every day, to to live beyond my emotions and my fears, because a lot of times we get into our feelings, and it's easy to react and respond to our feelings if we're angry or we're upset about something, and people can see it, right? And so we pass that on to others. But if we get into the right mindset and we reduce our own stress levels, and we get into meditative practices, you're going to spread that joy to other people. It has what I call a ripple effect on others. You're going to reduce that harmful chemical in your brain called cortisol, and you're going to reduce your stress levels. So, the last technique, and again, I can't emphasize eating meal frequently enough. The meal frequency is super important, because you will get into that habit and you're less likely to reach for the things that are harmful. But the last thing, and this is just a little tip, but it does work, is to have a piece of gum or mint at the end of a meal and to chew on that. Now, I like Spearmint Trident because the minty flavor, in my opinion, signifies to your brain that the meal is over, and it's not meant to be dessert. It's not meant to be overly sugary. It's not meant to, you're not meant to chew one piece after another, because that will lead to an abundance of sugar in your day. But your body gets to a point where when you incorporate these habits on a regular basis, your body gets into this habit where even if you're not used to eating every 3 hours right now or every 3.5 hours, if you do that for a week, if you try to do it for a week and lead with a protein source, your body will tell you. You don't even have to know what time it is. But let me just give you an example. So my meals are 7, 10, 12:30, 3 or 3:30, and then 6:30. So I'm about 3 to 3.5 hours, okay? I don't even have to put an alarm in my clock anymore, in my phone anymore, and I can tell you, just my body will say, okay, it's time to eat, just because I've gotten into that habit. And you're so much likely to reduce the likelihood of grabbing those harmful foods by getting into that habit. So what I like to do is I like to start every meal with a protein source. And if you're not sure how much protein you need, take your body weight and divide it by 5, because we're going to divide it by 5 meals. And that's how much protein you need at every meal. So it's probably going to be around 25 to 30 grams of protein at every meal. And so that's a lean fish or a chicken. Adding fruits and vegetables can also help, to satisfy your cravings. They really do help a lot, especially fruits, because they do have natural sugars in them. So the more natural foods that you consume, the less likely that your body's going to want those things. But again, if you've had a particularly stressful week, like I have, last week it was so hard. We had to go clean out 2 homes. Again, my husband is the executor, and there's a lot of personalities, a lot of people that we're having to manage. The phone calls and the texts of just the business aspect of what he had to manage on our personal time was just overwhelming. So it was very stressful. And I would definitely turn around and grab that piece of chocolate, or I would pick up things off the edge of my son's plate and just chew on it. And I'm like, what am I doing? That goes against my goal. So the meal frequency definitely helps with that. Another thing, and this is a replacement technique, okay? But think about what it is that you really want. What is it? Is it to lose that 20 pounds? Do you have an event coming up? If you can put an event on your calendar, then that is huge, because then you can work towards that. For example, we're going on a trip coming up in spring break, and I know March 12th. I know I better be bikini ready, because I'm going to be in a swimsuit. So that has also been an additional motivational tool that I've used to say, okay, hang up that bikini because you're going to be in it in 3 weeks, or now it's less than 3 weeks. So those are visual techniques that you can use that can help. Another thing that you can do, besides hanging up the bikini or the outfit or the skinny jeans or whatever it is that you want to wear, and you want to look really good in it, the other thing that you can do is find somebody online. It doesn't have to be, it should be a realistic body type, okay? It should be somebody that's similar to you in your height and physique. But find somebody who is in shape and cut it out, print it out off the computer, go to Google and just type in, fitness images, or type in something. Find somebody, print out the physique that looks like it could be you, and stick it on your mirror where you can see it every day. And that will be a constant visual reminder. Another thing I like to do is I like to break down goals into tiny bite-sized chunks. So before I said, I know I need to be bikini ready in just a few weeks. Well, so today and this week, I'm thinking about, what can I do this week to advance me towards my goal? And I really like to break it down because that makes today manageable. And when you've checked that off your list, then you can say, hey, I did it. And you reward yourself for that success. That also reprograms your brain in a positive way that you reached a goal and you're going to be able to continue on with it. So hopefully those techniques are helpful. Those are techniques that I use, and there are also some that I've researched just for this segment in particular. And I would like to know, if you're watching, where you're watching from, and then are you, 2 questions, okay? Pick which one you want to answer. You can answer both. Number 1, are you sugary sweet? Do you crave sugar, or do you crave the salty crunch? I crave the salty crunch. And then if you'd like to answer this one, I would like to know what stress triggers do you have that you know of? And then we can talk about ways to fix those stress triggers. I know, for example, mine this week was the death of a close family member, and then dealing with the aftermath of all the personalities and just all of the additional work that we needed to do to manage that. So, mine is very easy to identify, and, I can use these techniques now to prevent that from happening. So I appreciate you for joining me today. I look forward to hearing from you. And as always, this will be in the replay. If you didn't join me live, then you can watch the replay later. And I will see you guys next Thursday, this coming Thursday. And we're going to have a workout that moms can do when they only have 15 minutes. Okay, this is going to be a 15-minute effective workout that you can do from anywhere, even at home, and you're not going to need equipment. So you're going to want to join me. All right, I'll talk to you later.